So if you got the other page done in less than a half hour, or if you enjoyed it even though it took you a little bit longer and you moved on to this video, congratulations, this is getting you ready for what is expected of you next. The reason is this type of adding fractions you were expected to learn back in 4th grade. However, remember how 4th grade ended, right? It was pretty crazy. So I'm trying to give you enough time to really master just adding the fractions and writing your answer in simplest form. But if you are set with that, I want you to begin getting practice on the next step. The more you practice these skills, the more natural they will seem. So if you are watching this video, what you will need to do, you will need to rewrite these problems, but you will notice 3, 4, and 5, I've changed them, and 6, 7, and 8, I've changed them. Where will you rewrite them? Your jotter would be the very best place to rewrite them, because that will have space for you to mess around in, and it doesn't have to be a certain way like your math folder does. So I would suggest probably just flipping this over on the next page and copying these 3 across the top, and then give yourself about half of the page and copy the last 3 on the bottom half. You also need to copy down this reminder at the top. If you have a whole number that's part of the problem, what do I mean by a whole number? A number that is not in the fraction. I have one whole thing and one more third. So the whole number is part of the problem. The 1 is part of the problem now. If you need to do that, you have to rewrite your problem up and down. What do I mean by up and down? You put the whole number next to the fraction. There's 1 1/3. Then you put the other whole number underneath the first one. Just like when you have to add larger numbers with decimals, you put the whole number, the decimal, where you are switching to talking about pieces, and then you line up decimal places after that. We don't have decimals involved here, but it's the same idea. The whole numbers get added to the whole numbers. The parts get added to the parts. Now, once you have them rewritten up and down, you still have to get common denominators. We already did this. You could look back in your book and see how we got this, but the fact remains 3 times nothing is 5, so I multiply the top and bottom times the other fraction, and my new fraction will get written next to it over here. So I have 5/15. As soon as I have that new fraction, I'm going to lightly cross out the work that I did to get it. 1 times 5 is 1 times 3 is 3. 5 times 3 is 15. Lightly cross out the work that I did to get there. Then add the fractions. 5 plus 3 is 8. 15ths and 15ths are 15ths. Simplify it. When I did this earlier, I knew there was no common factor. And you can't forget to add the whole numbers. 1 plus 1 is 2. So I have 2 whole things and 8/15. That's the final answer here. Go ahead and try to do 4 and 5. Pause the video. Oops, not resume it yet. Pause the video as you do just 4 and 5. And resume now. Here we go. Whole number, fraction beside it. Whole number, fraction beside it. Make sure your whole numbers are twice the size of your fractions. They're written larger. I didn't do a good job of lining up my whole numbers, so I'm going to erase my 3 and put it directly under the 2. Denominators are not the same, so I have to get common denominators. I can't turn a 2 into a 5 by multiplying, so I multiply top and bottom times the other denominator. New fraction, 5/10. Lightly scribble out the original. New fraction, 2/10. Lightly scribble out the original. Now I add the fractions, 7/10. Can I simplify that? No, I couldn't earlier, and I can't now. 2 plus 3 is 5. Whole numbers were added together. Fractions were added together. The fraction is in simplest form. I am done. 4 on top, 5/12 beside it. 7 underneath the 4 because they are whole numbers. 1/4. This was one where I just had to change this fraction. Top and bottom times 3. New fraction is 3/12. Now, 5/12 plus 3/12. See why I scribble out so I can see which fractions I'm dealing with. 5/12 plus 3 more gave me 8/12. But wait, that was not in simplest form. I recall the largest common factor I could use, so I only divided once, was divide top and bottom by a 4. The fraction here is 2/3, so I'm not going to put 8/12 as my answer. 2/3 is my answer, along with 11. So my whole answer is 11 and 2/3. That's the final answer, the fraction and the whole numbers. Now this next line gets even more interesting. You'll notice I changed the fractions. If you didn't notice that when you copied it, notice it now. 1 and 2/3 plus 1 and 5/6. 2 1/2 plus 3 and 3/4. 2 and 5/8 plus 7 and 14/16. This is one step more complicated. You'll notice I made each of these fractions larger. That's going to do something different to the answer, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. 3 times 2, 2 times 2. If I can see right there that my new fraction will be 4/6, I could make the change right here. Plus 1 and 5/6. Remember, you want your whole numbers to be twice as large as your fractions. All right, 4/6 plus 5/6, well, that's 9/6. This is why you want to add your fractions first, because it only takes 6 pieces to have a whole thing, but I have 9/6. So I need to substitute. Instead of 9/6, I have one whole thing. That took out 6/6, which leaves me with 3 more 6ths. So far, instead of 9/6, just the fraction part, I have 1 and 3/6. But I still have to keep working with this because 3/6, I know, is the same as 1/2. So I have 1 and 1/2 when I added the fractions. I have to also add the whole numbers. So I have 2 whole things and 1 1/2. My final answer has to be 3 and 1/2. I take my 2 whole plus the other 1 that I got from having 1 and 1/2 when I added the fractions. 3 whole items, 1 more half. These other 2 are going to turn out that way. Give number 7, just number 7. Pause and do number 7, 2 1/2 plus 3 and 3/4. See if you can have it simplified all the way down. Here we go. Again, I said if you can get your common denominator, show the multiplication up here. That's perfectly fine before you write it down. 2 and 2/4. I'm adding to that 3 and 3/4. I add the fractions first and simplify. I have 5/4. The top is larger than the bottom, so that means I have to take out one whole thing. That gets rid of 4/4, which means the only fraction that I'm left with is 1 more fourth. After I took out the 4/4, and that became the 1 whole. This is the answer to the fractional part. This is not my final answer. I have to say 2 plus 3 is 5. So far my answer is 5 and 1 and 1/4. I can make that simpler. 5 and 1 is the same thing as 6. Have to keep that 1/4. So 6 and 1/4 is the final answer here. All right. This one is quite tricky, number 8, as I have it written. Pause, see if you can do 2 and 5/8 plus 7 and 14/16. All right, let's see how you did. I can turn an 8 into a 16 by multiplying, so my whole number is a 2. My fraction is 10/16. Whole number is a 7. Fraction is 14/16. I add the fractions first and simplify. 10 plus 14 is 24/16. Okay. Well, I can take one whole group of 16/16 out. How much is left? I need to do that off to the side. 24 minus 16. I have to borrow, and I have 8/16. So for the fractional part, I have 1 and 8/16 when I add the fractions. Do you notice anything about 8/16? The top is smaller than the bottom, but 8 is half of 16. So this fraction in simplest form is 1/2. What is the final then? Well, the fraction part will not be 8/16. The fraction part is 1/2. I still have to show that I had one whole group. So all of this boils down to 1.5. So 10/16 plus 14/16 gives 1.5 in simplest form. I'm not done. 2 plus 7 is 9. So I have 9 and 1.5. Is that the simplest way of saying it? Hey, Mom, I have 9 pizzas and 1.5 pizza. No. You would say, hey, Mom, I have 10.5 pizzas. That is your final answer. Hopefully, if you stuck with this, you are seeing your way forward. You will not be responsible to work problems like this on your own independently for about another 3 or 4 days. But it's a good idea to start practicing them now. If you feel like you need extra practice, I would suggest copying these problems down again and doing them on your own and watching the video again and seeing if they make sense. Thank you.